In last week's classwork, we looked at pages 171 and 172 in our text for jazz chords, just simply adding a third onto a triad. We'll have a major 7, adding another third, we'll have the 9th. And of course, there are 13th and the sky is the limit with our jazz chords. So please check out those charts again for our different chords that are familiar to jazz. On page 174, our text tells us about different jazz chord voicings, and using a fake book or lead sheet, it shows you that the sky is the limit as far as changing the inversions, adding or altering chord tones back to our C here. Even reharmonization is very common in accompanying in jazz. If you're looking at our fake book, page 579, Satin Doll is a good example of using some chords for jazz and different inversions. And this begins with the D minor 7, and I'll put the A on top because that's part of our melody of this song. And that works well with these chords and different inversions. So we'll add the 7th and the 9th to make a full sounding chord at the beginning. And then going to the G7, we'll even keep the E for the 13th here. It's just a little bit of movement from here. Here's our 7th, now for G7, the bass. You could stretch out your left hand this way for more of a spread voicing, but I like keeping close together for ease and movement for myself in this song. Going to the E minor 7, simply walk up, and our B is on top again for the melody. And we've added some notes by building on with thirds. Now when I go to the A7, I just simply need to move up to the C sharp. And again, our 7 can be in the bass. So we have in the third measure again. Not a lot of movement. And I'm playing the melody still because of the closeness of these chords. There's our D. And the second line. That satin doll. I'm using slash chords on the first ending. Move up to the A7. There's our 7. Walking back to the beginning. And so forth. On the second ending, we end on a C. And our F7, so I've combined that, squished that chord together, and C to make that a C7, there it is, walking down. On the third score, I like to do a stride bass that can free your hand up to play the melody, but I think I'll put hands together and alternate, modify the stride bass. She's nobody's fool, so I'm playing it cool as can be. There's our G minor, walking up again. I'll give her a whirl, ain't for a girl, can that be? And our G7, switch-a-rooney, then starting the beginning again. So that's just a short idea of accompanying Satin Doll. We're going to look at another way to accompany in jazz. In your text on page 177, it talks about comping. And last week, we looked at a song from a book called This Jazz Man. And so I wanted to use some jazz chords instead of just playing This Old Man to make it sound a bit jazzier. I do have a transcription, handwritten, I can share with you in class this week or next time I see you to show you some different chords that I used. And sometimes you might see C9 and C major 7 written different ways, just to give you an idea of what I'm doing here, and an applied chord on occasion as well. So if we have to start very basically just playing our chords first, this jazz man, he played one, he plays rhythm with his thumb, with a snap, snap, snappity snap, give the man a hand, this jazz man scats with the band, scat, scat. So using like the C major 7 chord, just very beginning ideas of comping. We can just play eighth notes on beats 1 and 3. This jazz man, he plays one, he plays rhythm with his thumb, with a snap, snap, snappity snap, give the man a hand. This jazz man scats with the band, scat, scat, so forth. Then another step, and you can look on page 177 in our text and following to get some more ideas for comping, but just to add one more step to this, instead of an eighth note on the third beat, we can make this right after beat 3 and have this jazz man, he plays one, he plays music with his thumb, and bringing in on the fourth measure our next chord, our G7, right before the fourth measure, kind of anticipating, is another early beginning stages of comping. So let me see if I can try that much again. This jazz man, he played one, he played rhythm with his thumb, and I like just holding out these notes. With a snap, snap, snappity snap, give the man a hand, this jazz man scats with the band. And when I played my G7 chord at the end, I waited until beat 2, this jazz man scats with the band. I added the C6 at 6 here at the end. So to give you an idea, I'll try that one more time. This jazz man, he played two, he played rhythm with his shoes, with a stomp, stomp, and I forgot our tappity tap rhythms. This jazz man taps with the band. I think he stomps with the band. So please look at following pages in your text for comping. We'll also talk about some jazz ballads that are mentioned in your text. And this is one I would like you to look at step by step. It begins on page 181 with introduction to jazz ballads and reharmonization. And then step by step changing the melody of a very familiar song. With the Christmas season coming, I think this would be a good one to work on. And then adding some chord tones. The next step on page 182 would to be look for places where we can add applied chords and reharmonize with the G minor 7. And also to add some more interest to, you can take out some of the 5-7 chords. It was 1-5-7, a lot of changes, similar changes in this song. Left out the C7 in that version. Moving on to page 183, substituting an F chord in the key